One cool thing about every Assassin's Creed game is the incredible places they're set in, whether it's the Italian settings from the Ezio trilogy, the Caribbean in Black Flag, Paris in Unity, or the large open world of the newer games. They all have their unique style, but within these games, there are specific locations that really stand out to me. I'm not talking about the overall game setting, but those special locations that make you stop and admire the scenery because they look so amazing. That's exactly what I want to do in this video. Now, I'm not going to go in any particular order with these locations, because I don't really want to rank them from worst to best. These locations are all the best to me. If you want to see a video that's focused specifically on the best settings in each game, or the best cities in each game, then check out these two videos I've made. Also, drop a comment below which location in any Assassin's Creed game you love the most, that's not a main city like Paris or London. Anyway, if you do enjoy this video, do consider hitting that subscribe button. And with all of that said, let's get right into it. Let's start off this video with a pretty peculiar location, and this one comes in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. There is so many to choose from in this game, but one of the many that stands out to me is the Taygetos mountain in the game. Now, as the name suggests, yes, it's a mountain, but the reason I find this location to be so stunning is because of a few reasons. First of all, it's the only mountain or area in the game that features snow, which I recall when I first found out about this, I was quite stunned. The real life peak of Mount Taygetos is also quite stunning with the snow-capped mountains at the top, and I love how the game captures that. Even the pathway to getting to this location in the game is beautiful, because you get presented with this view shortly below the peak of the mountain, which at night time looks even more stunning. Climbing the mountain does take some effort, but once you're at the top, the view is absolutely worth it. I think it's the only place in the game where you can practically see the entire game world, even Kefalonia, the starter island hidden in the distance right over there where I'm aiming. It's wild to think that all of these islands are explorable. Also, there is a pretty cool Easter egg right at the top of this mountain, where you can find a sword sticking out of some rock, of course being a reference to the sword Excalibur, which funnily enough was a weapon in the game after being Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Maybe that's some foreshadowing, who knows. Anyway, this spot is one of my favorites to just stop and admire. It's a bit of a bummer that the fog kind of covers it at night time, but that might just be my timing. Still, 10 out of 10 location. I will always have a soft spot for those high points in video games. The next location I find to be absolutely stunning is in Assassin's Creed Unity, and to be fair, pretty much every landmark or location in this game has its fair share of beauty, but the one I've gone with is the Luxembourg Palace, which is one landmark I'd really love to visit for myself in real life. When it comes to Unity's depiction of it, it's nothing short of insanely detailed, whether it's the interior or the exterior. For starters, the courtyard is grand and beautifully designed, full of elegance. You can clearly tell it's surrounded by impressive palace architecture, such as well-kept gardens with neatly trimmed hedges, flower beds, and even statues. Even the water fountain that's in the middle to keep it all symmetrical. And then there's the building itself. The great thing about Assassin's Creed Unity is the interior, and how insanely detailed each interior is. That's something you have to commend towards the interior designers for this game. But it's not downstairs where it's the most appealing. It's actually upstairs, hidden away in one certain room. And that room is this one. I mean, holy crap. It's like the designers spent 70% of their time on just this stunning room alone compared to the rest of this place. Each painting is detailed, and it's based on real historical paintings. Each wall has some sort of intricate pattern all over. The gold designs and even the entire ceiling being full of paintings and detail is so well thought out. It is a shame that the newer Assassin's Creed games we get today have little or no interior details such as this, but I do guess that's the downside of having larger open worlds over smaller denser cities. Or maybe it's the lack of caring anymore for Ubisoft. It's crazy because this is just one location in this entire game, and there are so many other buildings in Unity that have similar interior design to this, but this was just the one I picked out. Okay, so this next location is completely different than what we'd ever expect in the Assassin's Creed series, and that location is present day New York, or more accurately, New York as it was when Assassin's Creed 3 came out. Now, I'm going to be honest and say nostalgia plays a massive part in why seeing present day New York in an Assassin's Creed game stands out to me. I think it's because it reminds me a lot of what this franchise used to be like with its modern day, and how this game in particular was the peak of modern day with the whole Desmond Mars versus Abstergo plot. Watching Desmond parkour around a building over nighttime New York and taking in the scenery was just top notch. There is something about those 2012 graphics that gives me a warm nostalgic feeling. Honestly, if they recreated this with today's engine, I don't think I'd enjoy it as much because it's such a perfect snapshot of what the series used to be. And then the ending part where we parachute onto the next skyscraper, it's just great. You know, if you show this to a new Assassin's Creed fan, they would think what on earth was Assassin's Creed back in the day. So yeah, modern day New York is a definite stunning location for me in this franchise. I'll talk about another modern day location kind of similar to this later in the video. Okay, now next up in the video, we have a location that's a bit more larger than the previous ones I've talked about in this video. In fact, it's a lot larger, and that is Norway from Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You know, if the entire story of Valhalla was set here in Norway, I would be totally fine with that, because I've said before in a past video that Norway in Assassin's Creed Valhalla was a standout setting in this game. In fact, I feel like England should have been near towards the end of the game, but that's just my opinion. Norway in Assassin's Creed Valhalla to me is a lot more at home, even though I'm not Norwegian by any means. It just feels more rewarding and satisfying to explore. We can see it's a pretty cold, snow and ice focused land with a lot of snow-capped cliffs and icy looking rivers. Now sure, in terms of progression and things to do here, there's not as many as England, which is self-explanatory, but you can still hunt legendary animals, find treasure, climb the peaks and even find hidden boss fights. I'd recommend taking some time to explore Norway. Now I will say explore a little bit, not extensively, because Norway does have some high level areas. The great thing is you can always come back later in the game, but as a location overall, it's definitely one of my favorite looking ones. It's just a shame Valhalla to me was not a personal favorite game of mine. Let's go back one game to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and just to let you know, there is one more location that's set in Assassin's Creed Odyssey later in this video, but for now I've gone with another pretty large location, but not as large as Norway, and that location is the city of Athens. I mean, where do I even start with this iconic city? Athens is the capital of Greece and the largest city in Greece. Now for a massive city like Athens in a game like Odyssey, you would expect a lot of copy and paste, but surprisingly this city in particular is not like that. Every district or area of this beautiful city has its own atmosphere to it, and that's what I love about it. I was blown away by how well the developers nailed the city's layout, drawing from archaeological findings and historical documents. Even though I'm not an expert in history at all, I do know quite a bit about it, and I found myself moving around the city with ease thanks to the familiar landmarks and district designs. There is a lot of iconic landmarks and buildings in this city alone that you'll recognize. You've got the Acropolis and the Parthenon, which are two absolute icons of Greece. Just the way the game captures the vibe of Athens in its golden age is amazing. It really makes you want to just visit the city and see it in person. In fact, I've always said Athens is on my bucket list, and Odyssey is the main reason for this. Just imagine seeing all of those buildings and monuments that have stood tall for thousands of years, walking the streets and feeling that sense of awe as you climb the steps of the Acropolis. That's something I've always wanted to do. I might be wrong in saying this, but I'm pretty sure the size of Athens in this game is around the same size as Constantinople from Assassin's Creed Revelations, which does sound pretty insane to think about. So yeah, Athens is for sure a favorite location of mine that belongs in this video. Moving on, let's step away for a second from the more recent Assassin's Creed games and take a trip back to 2009. Now, Assassin's Creed 2 is my favorite Assassin's Creed game, and within this game, there are a few iconic locations that stand out to me, but the one very underrated one that I barely see get talked about is the Venice Canals. Now, in real life, the Venice Canals are a great place to be, although I wouldn't recommend going in the water. Just trust me on that. In Assassin's Creed 2, there's something relaxing and soothing about just gliding through the narrow waterways on a gondola. Also, try not to pay attention to Ezio's very strange rowing animation. It's an old game, we can't cut it some slack. One thing I will say is the developers did an amazing job of capturing the heart of Venice, and it's, as I said, relaxing to explore the city from this perspective on a boat. We're so used to, you know, running or parkouring around the city in this game that we never expect to just be on a gondola and move through the game's depiction of Venice to witness all the sights. For a game released in 2009, it does certainly look quite good, although I would never say no to a remake for sure. Let's not forget the historical accuracy too. The attention to detail makes you feel like you're actually in Renaissance Venice. One of the major parts of the canals is the Grand Canal, and the depiction of it in Assassin's Creed 2 is pretty accurate. It really does capture the heart of Venice during the Renaissance. This main waterway is full of impressive historic buildings and NPCs just walking around that showcase the city's elegance. You know, the more you move around in the gondola, you'll notice all the intricate details that make the setting feel so real. Whether it's water reflecting on the buildings with light and shadows dancing on the surface, the Rialto Bridge, one of the most iconic landmarks which stretches across the canal, the marketplace and traders along the banks, all of this whilst floating through the Venice canals. So yeah, 10 out of 10 location to me for sure. This certain location is pretty self-explanatory. If you don't know what the pyramids of Giza are, then you either live under a rock or spend too much time scrolling on TikTok. This location in Assassin's Creed Origins has to be in this video because I have not really spoken about this landmark much on my channel, which is insane. Located in Giza, these pyramids in Assassin's Creed lore are built on top of an ancient ezio complex. Exploring these ancient wonders, whether it's outside or inside, feels like stepping back in time. The designers did such an amazing job capturing the true scale, which I feel like is pretty hard to pull off in video games. I will say climbing the pyramids to get to the very top to take in that view is a bit tedious of a thing to do, but that's only for the first time. Once you're up there, you can get that sync point and take in the stunning view of ancient Egypt. The great thing about Assassin's Creed Origins is the perception of the landmarks. Now what I mean by that is this game does a great job of letting us see historical structures from very far away. So if I was standing on top of a building in Alexandria, just like I am right now, I could see the Great Pyramids of Giza in the distance in all of its beauty. What I love is how the game lets you explore inside the pyramids, moving through dark narrow passageways and stumbling upon hidden chambers filled with treasures and hieroglyphics is something that does interest me quite a bit. It really does feel like you're uncovering secrets that have been buried for thousands of years. So yeah, overall the Pyramids of Giza in Assassin's Creed Origins are a standout location that adds a lot of depth and wonder to the game. Okay, now next, we have a location that I feel needs more spotlight, and it's a shame that we didn't really see much of this location in Assassin's Creed Revelations, and that location is the Hagia Sophia. Built between 532 and 537, this building stands as a masterpiece of Byzantine architecture and art in Assassin's Creed. Its depiction is nothing short of spectacular. Now, I could be wrong in saying this, but I'm pretty sure you're not able to explore the interior after the game has finished, but only during the secret Ishak Pasha missions, which I feel like is a bit of a silly decision. The exterior of this place is stunning with how grand it looks, and how it towers over most buildings in the area. You cannot help but be awed by the massive dome. Climbing to the top of the Hagia Sophia is one of my favorite parts. The views of Constantinople from up here are simply stunning. Now, the mission that involves Ezio and Sophia that takes place around this location is one of my favorite missions in Assassin's Creed Revelations. Here's a pretty interesting fact about this place in the game. So did you know the interior of the Hagia Sophia is a lot larger than the exterior, which I don't know why they made it like that, but I thought it was pretty interesting to know. And speaking of the interior, it's very decorated with mosaics and lighting, and it makes it kind of feel almost sacred. The way the sunlight streams through the windows, casting patterns on the floor, is just pretty nice looking, especially for a relatively older game. It's not too old though. Plus there are some pretty cool parkour opportunities inside and around the structure. Next up, let's move back to Assassin's Creed Odyssey and talk about the last location in this game for this video. And that location is in fact the city of Mykonos, or rather the entire island. It's one of the most vibrant and bright cities in this entire game. In fact, it might even be the most vibrant city out of every city in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Now, even though the name of it is Mykonos City, it's more so a little town or a tiny village. But it's so much more than that, because the entire island is what's so stunning to me. It's just sitting there in the middle of the Aegean Sea, surrounded by water and far distant islands, making it a pretty secluded place to go to. The main part of Mykonos City in this game is the Temple of Artemis, and how it just instantly stands out wherever you are on the island. Inside the city, the whitewashed buildings with their blue accents, narrow streets, and vibrant bougainvillea are all spot on, making it feel like you're really there. There is also the statue of Artemis located here, which stands atop a hill watching over the island. Now, Mykonos is not just a visually appealing location in the game, but it also has some of my personal favorite quest lines that take place here, with the quest named Trouble in Paradise, which, thinking of it now, is a pretty fitting name. Mykonos definitely is a paradise. I also like how the real life Mykonos is also quite similar in some ways, with how the buildings are all white, and it's definitely very vibrant. But if I'm being honest, it is a place that's turned into a mass tourism area. Now next up, we have a more obscure location in Assassin's Creed Origins, and it's not a city, but instead it's a pretty short area, and that area is the tomb of Alexander the Great. It's tucked away in Alexandria, and the moment you step inside, you can feel the weight of history. You know, I have to commend the developers because they did a fantastic job capturing the grand scale and mystery surrounding this legendary figure's final resting place. Now, the tomb of Alexander the Great in the game is so underrated and overlooked that it needs to be talked about a lot more. In fact, shout out to the Spaniard, because he's the only YouTuber that I've really seen talk about this location. Of course, the tomb houses the remains of Alexander the Great, who was the king of Macedonia. The moment you step into this grand mausoleum, you can feel a sense of reverence wash over you. Exploring this place has a kind of solemn vibe, with glowing lights flickering and casting shadows on the impressive statues that line the walls. One pretty cool thing I like about this location is you're able to interact with all of the paintings near the candles, and it will tell a story about that painting, which just shows you how much the Assassin's Creed series can really tell a historical story in truth, and how much effort the developers really put into this game, specifically with its history. You've got towering statues practically watching and defending over the tomb in a sense. Of course, not literally, and it all makes it feel so royal. And then there's the tomb of Alexander the Great himself, a tomb that is very detailed and is perched atop a couple of steps to walk up to. The sarcophagus contains a few inscriptions that are all detailed and translate to meaningful phrases. You know, thinking of it now, this location is really just tucked away in secret, and you only really come here during a main story mission. But the good thing about Assassin's Creed Origins is you're able to explore all of the locations that you'd consider stunning in the open world at any time. If you know the history behind Alexander the Great, then this location in the game is 10 times more fascinating to explore. So yeah, if you're a person of history like myself, then you would appreciate this location for what it truly is. I mean, to be fair, they did not need to implement a location like this into the game, but they still did it anyway. Now let's switch gears and head back to Assassin's Creed Unity for the second location in this video, which is the Palace of Versailles. Now, compared to the Luxembourg Palace I talked about earlier, the Palace of Versailles is much more recognized. You know, technically, this location first appears in Assassin's Creed Rogue, but it's the improved graphics and visual appeal in Unity that really makes the Versailles Palace stand out a lot more. It's a bit disappointing that you cannot really return to the Palace of Versailles in free roam. I mean, come on Ubisoft. The palace, originally a hunting lodge for King Louis XIII, was transformed into one of the grandest and most elaborate royal palaces ever built, serving as a political hub for over a century. Just imagine if Ubisoft had made Versailles more open, not just using it as a tutorial area. We could have explored staterooms and gardens, really getting a sense of how things worked before the revolution, and seeing all of the lavish excess firsthand. The Hall of Mirrors with its shimmering chandeliers and intricate decor is a perfect example. Unfortunately, we could only see it very briefly because the entire building was so linear and restricted. You start Arno's story here, experiencing the palace's full glory before the revolution changes everything. The contrast between the opulent interiors and the unfolding chaos adds a lot of depth to the story. Now, while I loved exploring the accessible parts of the palace, I couldn't really help but wish for more. It would have been amazing to delve into the additional rooms and hidden corners of the Palace of Versailles, getting a much closer look at the daily life and excesses of the ancient regime. But despite these limitations, the Palace of Versailles in Assassin's Creed Unity remains a highlight, restricted but stunning nonetheless. This specific location is a given to be featured in this video, and that location is the entire frontier from Assassin's Creed 3. Now, the frontier, in my opinion, is probably one of the most overlooked aspects of anything Assassin's Creed related, and I do not really know why. The game's portrayal of the vast untamed wilderness is quite stunning. It's basically a central part of the game, perfectly fitting into Connor's story and a character as a Native American. The landscapes here are stunning and diverse, from the dense forest to often snowy peaks that we can explore, making each area feel like a real part of 18th century America. One aspect of Assassin's Creed 3 that I loved the most was the changing seasons, and I love how weather effects add a dynamic touch, keeping exploration feeling fresh and exciting. You can experience a lot of summer here with its vibrancy, to harsh winters where lakes will freeze over into frozen paths, and even the snow. It literally slows you down when you move around with Connor. You know, the way I see it is you can kind of think of the frontier as the game's third city, but one where quite a decent portion of the story unfolds. That's a very important chunk of action happening here in a space that's bigger than a lot of the main cities in this franchise. The frontier even contains small settlements like Native American villages, logging camps, trading posts, and even historic towns like Lexington and Concord. Now, one underrated aspect of the frontier to me is how it blends beauty with gameplay. What I mean by that is you can parkour around trees, climb rugged cliffs, and do activities like hunting, all of which tie into the story and side missions. Even the seemingly empty areas are full of wildlife and activities to do. So yeah, overall the frontier in Assassin's Creed 3 is more than a visually stunning location. It's also rich in gameplay, making it one of the most memorable things in Assassin's Creed. Now we're moving into the final 4 locations in this video, and remember, this is not a ranking video. These locations are all in random order. Now for this one, let's take a trip to Assassin's Creed Valhalla and talk about a location that is the city of Jorvik. I've mentioned earlier in the video that Norway in Assassin's Creed Valhalla is my favorite setting to explore, and I prefer it over England. It's the snowy setting that I love, and Jorvik, which is a city in England in this game, contains a lot of snow and reminds me a lot of Norway. Set in what we now know as York, this city is a fascinating blend of Norse and Anglo-Saxon culture, perfectly capturing the spirit of the Viking Age. You know, the more you just walk around Jorvik in this game, you can see the influence of the Viking rule. From the architecture to the people you can see roaming around. Jorvik was one of the few cities in Assassin's Creed Valhalla that gave me a nostalgic Assassin's Creed 1 vibe, reminding me of what the series can be at its best. Climbing rooftops in a city full of stone structures, churches, and a storyline centered around taking out Templars really did bring back those old feelings. In fact, in my opinion, some of the best story missions in Assassin's Creed Valhalla are in Jorvik. Jorvik. Now one thing that I really loved about this city is how it reminded me a lot of Roman style streets and buildings. So all in all, Jorvik is my favorite city in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Okay, so this location might be a pretty strange one to you guys, and you may wonder why locations such as this even makes it into a video featuring stunning cities, mountains and islands. But strangely, the present day Monteriggioni during the modern day of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is a location that feels so warming to explore. The modern day in Brotherhood took everything from the earlier games and perfected it. I absolutely love that we can explore not just the sanctuary of Villa Auditore, but also step outside and roam around the whole city as Desmond. Knowing that we're in the 21st century and we can explore basically what Monteriggioni once was, and it's where Ezio lived for a period, the Borgias invaded and a lot more old happened here, is something that I like a lot. It's that blend of old and new which is beautifully done. Seeing places that were once full of people in the Renaissance now quiet and serene gives a sense of the passage of time. This location might just be a me thing, but since it is my video, I'm going to feature it. Maybe it could be nostalgia, maybe. But regardless, the idea of exploring a unique location like this is something that I love. I just wish we could explore it more in depth, whether it's more collectibles or lore related stuff happening here. This one might be a strange choice, but as I said earlier in the video when I talked about modern day New York in Assassin's Creed 3, I did say I was going to feature another modern day location, and this one is Abstergo Industries in Assassin's Creed Black Flag and Rogue. Now this building in general, in my opinion, is super fascinating to explore. It's a nice refreshing change of pace compared to historical cities and settings we'd often explore with our main protagonists. You see, as you wander through Abstergo Industries, you really do notice the attention to detail, whether it's the references to Ubisoft's other games scattered around the place, the animus offices all around the floor, people drinking coffee, people talking. It just feels weird to see in an Assassin's Creed game, and maybe that's why I like it. You know, if you think about it, Abstergo Industries is pretty much Ubisoft in the Assassin's Creed universe. Just like Ubisoft develops games based on historical events and figures, Abstergo does the same but within the game's world. They develop virtual reality experiences that lets people dive into the lives of historical assassins and Templars, which is exactly what we do when we play Assassin's Creed. They're also evil, which, yeah, no comment. Oh, and how could I almost forget about this view when you go to visit Olivia Garnu's office? Yes, it's all probably 2D textures, but hey, don't ruin my imagination, okay? Now last but certainly not least, because there are so many locations in this franchise that are stunning, in fact this video could have easily been 2 hours long if I really wanted to. Maybe I'll make a part 2. Anyway, last but not least is Asgard in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You know, one thing I've never said anything bad about when it comes to Valhalla is the visual side of the game. My only issues are the story being so long and boring, but I'll never discredit how gorgeous some of the parts of this game look, and Asgard is one of them. I remember the first time I was transported to this location and we got that stunning view from Heimdall's tower overlooking everything. And then there's that massive leap of faith, which I believe is one of the highest points in any video game ever. This entire Asgard region could easily have been a DLC in itself with how long it was and how different it was compared to the base game story. I say base game, but this is the base game, which sounds strange. Now don't get me saying Asgard is stunning confused, because I still find the story in the Asgard arc very boring, but visually it's breathtaking. The attention to detail is pretty accurate as well. You'll find massive statues of the gods, intricately designed temples and beautifully crafted architecture, all adding to the otherworldly vibe of the place. There's even some pretty unique looking places such as the Bifrost Bridge, Ivali's Forge, and even the Yggdrasil tree which holds the 9 realms together. So yeah, overall Asgard is a stunning location in Assassin's Creed, and it's one even I like exploring. I don't know about the story though, that's an entirely different ball game. So there you have it. This has been the most beautiful locations in Assassin's Creed. I know I've missed out on plenty of other beautiful locations in this franchise, but these are the ones that I felt are worth mentioning the most. I could make a part 2 for this, just let me know down in the comments below if that's an interesting idea. Also, comment below which location in all of Assassin's Creed you find to be the best looking, or just one that you find stunning in general. Anyway, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one.